All right, so we're gonna get started. I hope everybody can see my screen. I'll take that as a yes. Um, so welcome to the New York webinar for the Long Island Sound Resilience Planning Support Services request for proposals. My name is Sarah Schaefer Brown. I work for New York Sea Grant as the Long Island Sound Sustainable and Resilient Communities Extension Professional for Nassau County. And I am joined today by Sarah Powell, who is my colleague in the same role in Westchester County, Ben Goldberg, who is in that role for New York City, and he just joined us in January, Elizabeth Hornstein, who is in that same role for Suffolk County. So we are all supporting the larger efforts of the Long Island Sound Study, which is the National Estuary Program created by the US EPA and is a partnership to protect and restore the Sound and its watershed. And I also believe we have Norma Gunn and Tanya Yanchuk, who are also part of the New York Sea Grant team, and they're based in Cornell University and kind of our administrative staff there. And Deborah Benson, who that name might ring a bell for all of you. She's that Cornell procurement and payment services contact. She planned to be on this webinar, but unfortunately she had a conflict and is no longer able to make it. So she's that main contact to answer any specific questions on the RFP documents that were part of the bid solicitation that was released on April 28th. The SRC team, so me, Sarah Powell, Ben Goldberg, and Elizabeth Hornstein will do our best to answer questions that you have on this webinar, but if there are kind of procurement specific questions, those are going to need to be collected, and then Deborah Benson will review those, answer them, and post answers to the Procureware bid tool on Monday. So you all can review responses to that there. So just some ground rules. This webinar will be recorded, as I said, and we will make it available to all of the registrants and attendees afterwards. Q&A will follow the presentation. And if you have questions, just submit them in the chat or raise your hand. So, the Long Island Sound Study is a federally authorized and funded partnership of the US EPA, the states of Connecticut and New York, and multiple federal, state, and local agencies, academic institutions, environmental groups, and businesses, including Connecticut Sea Grant and New York Sea Grant, which New York Sea Grant is who we work for. It was established in 1985 and is dedicated to restoring and protecting Long Island Sound. It's designated by Congress to be an estuary of national significance, and it's guided by the mission, goals, and strategies of the Comprehensive Conservation and Management Plan, or CCMP. It was updated in 2020, and now it is currently being updated again with an official release of that updated version in June of this year. And so there are 4 main goals of that CCMP: clean waters and healthy watersheds, thriving habitats and abundant wildlife, informed and engaged public, and sustainable and resilient communities. And Sarah, Ben, Elizabeth, and I are focused on advancing that last goal, sustainable and resilient communities. And I'm going to put a link in the chat for more information on lists if you want to look at that. All right. So as you can see, the Long Island Sound watershed is quite expansive, and it spans the coast of New York and Connecticut. And for this reason, this New York team that's on the call today is also coordinating with 2 staff in Connecticut who are spanning Western and Eastern Connecticut to advance the regional goal of sustainable and resilient communities. So the goal of our work is to empower communities to plan for and respond to environmental challenges in ways that prioritize well-being for all. And these are the three new kind of main objectives that are in the new CCMP that will be released in June. And so our three main focuses to advance sustainability and resilience across the watershed are to create informed decision makers, encourage community-driven resilience planning, and also increase resilience initiative implementation. And so there are, within this new management plan, details and actions that specifically outline how we envision that these objectives and then the larger goal will be met. So we will surely let you know when that document is out there, and it'll be on the LIST website. So the program that I'm going to cover today was developed by our team to assist with the development of sustainability and resilience-focused projects that will impact a community or communities within or partially within the Long Island Sound coastal boundary, so that area shaded in pink. And the work of the Long Island Sound Study Sustainable and Resilient Communities group and our work group has shown that for communities across New York and Connecticut, there's a lack of capacity, expertise, and resources for identifying, conceptualizing, and developing projects focused on improving community sustainability and resilience. And there's a lot of difficulty obtaining funding, and that is one of the main barriers to planning, design, and implementation of projects. So to address these needs, the New York Sea Grant team and our Connecticut Sea Grant colleagues came up with this Long Island Sound Resilience Planning Support Program to provide assistance to those communities to develop sustainability and resilience-focused projects. So on April 28th, the Resilience Planning Support Services RFP was issued through Cornell University. The services are supported by funding from the US EPA through the Long Island Sound Study, and they're administered through New York Sea Grant and Connecticut Sea Grant. And the deadline for this RFP is June 20th at 2 p.m. So through the services, we intend to provide scoping and planning for sustainability and resilience-focused projects to support a final list of candidates of the Long Island Sound Resilience Planning Support Program. So we issued a RFEI, or request for expression of interests, earlier in December, so December 2024, to kind of gather community interest and needs, sifted through that list, and then those candidate projects are the ones that are in this RFP. So the ones that we identified would be kind of suitable candidates for this project. So there are no funds given directly to the applicants. So those candidates, those communities, funds are reimbursed directly to the contractor that we are going to hire through this RFP. There's no match required from the community. And the eligible applicants that we are looking to support are municipalities, community organizations, nonprofit groups. So the main goals of this program are really to help communities assess local environmental risks and vulnerabilities, conceptualize project ideas, conduct preliminary planning efforts in order to be well positioned to access funding to design and implement successful projects. And some of the projects that we are looking to support are vulnerability assessment, strategy development, project planning, project prioritization, funding guidance, preliminary community engagement, or even site feasibility or conceptual design. So in the first round of the program, we launched the first year of this planning support program actually last year. So that was our the first year of the program. We were able to support 15 projects across New York and Connecticut. And I'm going to share in the chat a link to where you can find out more information about those projects. There is a award slate and also an interactive map that you can check out to learn more about those projects. Okay. So now for this year, we have 13 projects that we would like to support in New York. As I said, this list was developed through that RFEI that went out late in 2024 to communities. So you'll see on this slide, this is the some of those projects. If you review the RFP, there's a summary table of the services that candidates of the Long Island Sound Resilience Planning Support Program, the list of that candidate list. It's in table 1, and then there's more detail about the background of those projects, any links that we thought would be useful to pass on, specific deliverables that were requested from that community, and a project map. That is in Appendix A. So we have, I'll start from the top. We have 1653 Foundation, who is looking to do a stormwater design recommendations for Mill Dam Park. We have Great Neck Village Officials Association, who is looking to do an environmental risk and vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan. Hen Island Environmental Committee is looking to do a shoreline adaptation plan. Casina Synergy is looking to complete a 5-year strategic plan. Rye Sustainability Foundation would like to do a natural resources inventory. Setauket Harbor Task Force would like to develop a protection committee for the harbor. Salonga Wetland Advocates Network would like to develop a conservation and management plan for Fresh Pond in Fort Salonga. And then to continue this list, Town of Southold would like to develop a conceptual design plan to stabilize Southold Town Beach. Village of Head of the Harbor would like to do a conceptual design plans for stormwater remediation in the Village of Head of the Harbor. Village of Northport would like to do a harbor walk study and conceptual design plan. Village of Portchester, a flood study for the Village of Portchester. Incorporated Village of Jefferson would like to do a feasibility study for stormwater capture and reuse at a municipal-owned golf club. And last but not least, Village of Shoreham would like to do concept designs for stormwater remediation in the village. So more information is in the RFP on all of those projects. Contractors must possess a strong background in environmental planning work, must have organizational and communication skills that work well with municipalities, communities, community groups, nonprofits, and federally and state recognized tribes, nations, as well as unrecognized indigenous communities. So contractors, you're encouraged to review all of the information about these candidates, and please identify which ones you have the capacity and expertise to provide services to. Note that not all of the candidate projects included in the RFP submission, may be determined to be awardees in the end. As all award determinations for these projects will be are subject to a review and evaluation and selection criteria process that we've outlined in the RFP. And are also subject to the availability of funds and resources to support these projects, and the engagement of a qualified contractor to do the work. So, if we can't match a project with a qualified contractor to do the work, unfortunately, that project just won't make it, won't be advanced to the awardee stage. And just please review this list and submit bids for the projects you think you have the capacity and expertise to provide services to. Okay, so the SRC team, so Ben, Sarah, myself, and Elizabeth, we are the SRC team in New York. We'll provide guidance throughout the process with the selected contractor. The contractor is expected to provide, high quality services to either, a large subset or maybe just one or two, up to you on what you want to bid on. of the awardees of the planning support program. The services are anticipated to be provided for up to 2 years, though the specific scope and duration of your proposal and the project with the candidate are really based on the PO that's eventually set up between the contractor and Cornell University. And then the PO will be developed based on the details included in the RFP submission for the candidate project. And I do want to note that there are tasks that are required as part of each contract that we set up between the contractor and Cornell University. And this is to ensure that we are being consistent and providing kind of a well-rounded product and project for each of these candidates. So I'll go over those now. So each of the tasks on this slide, task A through D, must be included in the RFP submission and associated budget detail. You can insert and you should insert additional details as needed for each task and deliverable that you propose to complete for each candidate project. If you want to read more about these required tasks and some of the language that's in there, that's on page 6 through 7 of the RFP. So the task A is to form a required task is to form and coordinate with stakeholder groups. Task B is to develop a QAP, a quality assurance project plan. And task C is to develop progress reports, and task D is to provide technical services and final products developed through the services. So I'm going to go into a little more detail on each of those. So task A, we're really just looking for you as the contractor to hold an initial meeting with the SRC extension professionals and the awardees to discuss the formation of a comprehensive and relevant stakeholder group for the project. And that stakeholder group will be engaged throughout the process of the project. So, and you can determine, the kind of the frequency at which you want to meet with the stakeholder group, but this group needs to be established to really make sure that this project is considering input from various sources, and eventually the project will, hopefully have very good chance of being implemented if early steps are taken to bring in a large, well-rounded stakeholder group. And at the first meeting with that stakeholder group and the awardee, the contractor will work with the group to establish project-specific goals and a shared project vision to inform and direct the project as it advances throughout the scope of work period. And then the deliverables that we'll require for this task A will be meeting attendee list and summaries for each meeting that you have. And that should be distributed within a timely manner to the awardees, the stakeholder group, and then the designated regional SRC person. So each SRC member who has coverage for each region will be the main point of contact for each of these projects if they are moved forward to the awardee stage. Okay, so task B is QAP development. So a quality assurance project plan is required for most of the projects that we are supporting through this. Because this is EPA funding, it is a requirement that a QAP be developed and approved prior to any start of data collection. It is anticipated that a QAP can take about 4 months to get to be developed and then approved. So we just want you to note that in your timeline and kind of consider that in your timeline. And then we did get confirmation from EPA that for the Casina Synergy project and the Setauket Harbor Task Force projects, that a QUAP is not required for those because it is kind of a different type of project, as you'll see within the RFP and project descriptions. So the required deliverables for this task will be draft QUAP submitted to EPA and then a final QUAP and submitted and approved by EPA. Okay, Task C, progress reports. So we require submission of progress updates accompanying the submission of an invoice, or at least every 3 months, distributed to the awardees, the designated SRC extension professional, and Cornell University. And that is to make sure that we are kept up to date on how things are progressing and can see where things stand as we're reviewing invoices and at a pretty consistent frequency. Okay, task D, this is kind of your main task. So this is the task where you should insert details on specific tasks and deliverables that you as the contractor propose to complete for the candidate project. So this is where you'll put, if you're doing a concept design, kind of all those detailed tasks and steps to complete that conceptual design. So the deliverables for this task will be outputs of those technical services that you're proposing to complete for that candidate project. And then the final deliverable will be submission of all final products, reports, or materials developed through the services. And that will be distributed to the awardee, stakeholder group, SRC, extension professional, and Cornell University. Okay, so just to mention a couple things that are additional requirements. So the SRC team developed this PERSIST criteria. Is a guide for Long Island Sound communities to move projects from idea to implementation. And it will help advance the Long Island Sound CCMP. So the guiding questions in the sections of this acronym are intended to help you think through each of the 8 criteria. Not all of the guiding questions are applicable to each project type. And the questions and criteria are not themselves listed in any order of importance or priority, but it is recommended that as you go through the projects, that this guide is followed and kind of referenced to make sure that you're covering all your bases and doing things in an inclusive way. So I'm going to stick a link in the chat to that so you guys can review that more if you would like to. This is on our Long Island Sound Resilience Resource Hub. And then one more thing I'll mention. So all candidate projects in New York that entail the development of one of the below natural resources inventory, climate vulnerability assessment, or climate adaptation plan must follow the New York State Climate Smart Communities Program guidance. Okay, so submission details for the RFP. All RFP submissions must include the following information. Please start each section 1 through 6, on a new page. Be sure to follow the format instructions on page 8 in the RFP. So you'll see that the first section is just the cover page, including your primary point of contact, administration contact, if that's applicable, and then the authorized representative of the person that will sign the PO. Section 2 is the statement of work. So this is kind of, the meat of your of your proposal submission. 10 pages max. And if possible, if you could submit all graphics, images, and charts on separate pages, that would be helpful to us. We do take the text that you submit in your proposals and use that to develop the PO. So if we can just take the text and not have to sift through, images or graphs that are in line with the text, that's helpful to us to kind of streamline the process. So just if you can do that, that would be fantastic. So in this section, you should include your project description. So describe your overall strategy, implementation approach, project management tools, and methodologies to provide the services for that candidate project. And then scope and deliverables include this tasks, subtasks, and deliverables for the candidate project. So you can, as I said, include additional tasks in addition to those task A through D in your proposal, but you must include tasks A through D in your proposal. And then you should include subtasks if you would like. If you would like to be able to invoice for task or subtask, you should break that out in your narrative and then in your budget and timeline accordingly, so that you can invoice when each task and subtask are completed. And all of those tasks and subtasks must match across your statement of work, your timeline, and your budget document. Just to make sure everything matches and we can reference everything accordingly. So section 3 is your timetable. So this is the timeline for the project. So please include tasks, subtasks, and key deliverables. Please put your timeline in a format so that it indicates month 1, month 2, month 3, etc. Do not insert specific dates. So for instance, if your project starts, you think your project's going to start fall 2025, don't put task 1 is going to start fall 2025 or September 2025, put month 1, and then follow that sequence as you build out your timeline. That helps us to make sure things are a little more flexible as things progress. Section 4 is the budget. So you should include a detailed budget, include a fixed price based on hourly rates and estimated hours for each task or subtask, and include budget justifications for each. We want to know how much it's going to cost you to do each task and subtask. If you want to invoice for a task and a subtask, you need to break them out individually so that we can see how much you are going to be invoicing us for when that task is completed or that subtask is completed. Okay, section 5 is just a description of qualifications. We would like relevant experience and your project team. That should say section 6. Section 6 is client examples and references. So provide 3 to 5 examples of past relevant projects or contract impacts and accomplishments, and then provide at least 3 client references. Okay, so funding for this program, we have approximately $600,000 available for the completion of the services for up to 13 York awardees. So in the past, we've funded projects ranging from $35,000 to $115,000, and we are considering funding projects in the same range this year. It doesn't mean that we won't go outside of that range, but that will give you a ballpark of the kind of the level of services that we provided through the first round. Contractors, you may bid on multiple proposals, but each candidate project requires a separate proposal submitted through that Procureware bid tool. So funds are distributed based on the budget detail for the services proposed per candidate project in the RFP submission, and then agreed upon in the final budget table included in the PO. And all payment is administered on a cost reimbursable basis and by task or subtask. And some of you have seen, but there is a parallel, well, there will be a parallel RFP that will be released through University of Connecticut. We expect that to happen mid-May, and that will be for an additional 5 Connecticut-based projects. So this is the timeline that is in that RFP that you all can reference, but I'll go over it here. You all likely saw it was issued April 28th. We're having this webinar today. The deadline for submission of questions related to the RFP is May 16th. So if you have questions, please ask them today on this call. But if you have additional questions outside of that, please submit them through their Procureware bid tool by May 16th. We will review them, respond to them by May 23rd through the Procureware bid tool. The RFP bids are due June 20th at 2 p.m. We may set up follow-up calls after we review bids in July. Contractor selection will likely occur July or August. And then contractor awards and contracts will occur in August, and then hoping to kick off these projects with you in the summer or fall of 2025. And just a note that contracts officially start when the contractor is accepted into the Cornell University vendor system and the purchase order is fully executed. And then, as I said, POs have been typically for about 2 years, for 2-year service period. So once we review all the proposals that all the submissions that we get from contractors for these projects, we'll review them and identify the best contractor for each project, each candidate project. The community will then be, so the candidate community will then become an awardee community. And that awardee will be sent an acceptance of support letter from New York Sea Grant to outline, Village of, say, for example, Village of Head of the Harbor, we've selected this contractor to work with you to complete your project. Do you agree to work with this contractor on your project? The community will then sign the letter, or not sign the letter. If they do not sign the letter, we do not advance the project or the work with the contractor. We need that confirmation from the community that they're agreeing to move forward with the project with the selected contractor. But after the awardee returns that signed acceptance of support letter, New York Sea Grant, Cornell University will then develop the purchase order with the contractor. So we won't actually start developing that PO until we have that approval. And just a note, the contractor must not reach out to the community directly. With the to the communities directly or the candidates regarding this opportunity prior to the execution of that PO. And yes, that's all I'll say there. Okay, and then so the awardees, that community they may be asked to approve products and deliverables before payment is made to contractors as the project progresses. They'll be involved, very closely to the project. This is, their needs and their services we're trying to provide. So they will be closely involved. In all cases, they are going to be reviewing the final deliverables of the project, which is, final products, reports, or materials. And no funds are passing through that awardee organization or municipality. So it's a voluntary program for them. There's no out-of-pocket costs for them. However, we do expect the community to, commit staff time, resources like local data, their knowledge, maybe potentially like conference rooms or meeting spaces, to help advance the project. So really, looking for them to be very, very involved and supportive as the projects progress. So as I said, the four of us will be involved throughout the projects. Each one of us who's in each of the regions will be your direct contact if you're assisting a community in our region. We may ask you at the conclusion of your scope of work period to present at one of our work group meetings on the projects, but it's not a requirement. We just wanted to throw that out there. We love to promote our work and show how this is advancing sustainability and resilience. We might ask you to present at one of our meetings. This is our contact information. If you want to talk to one of us directly, we're also on the call, so you can put a link in the a note in the chat if you want to ask us a question. So I know that was a lot. I'm going to move on to some major questions that people might have, just to kind of cover those, and then I'll pause for questions. So big question people might have is, how do I submit a proposal? So you all should be on our contractor distribution list. And what that means is that you were sent an email on April 28th around 1 o'clock from Cornell University with an invitation to register and bid, or an invitation to bid. And that is the only way you can apply to this RFP. You have to access it that way. Deborah Benson is the main contact there, so I'll try to answer any questions people have on that. But if you did not receive that email, please put your email in the chat and we can add you to the distribution list and get that RFP sent to you. So you need to submit responses directly through that Procure Where Bid tool no later than June 20th at 2 p.m. And as I said, we will try to select those the preferred contractor for each product by July. How do you ask a question about the RFP? If you have a question today, just please ask away and we'll try to answer it. But if you have a question after the fact, you have to submit them through that Procure Where Bid tool by Friday, May 16th, and we will answer them by May 23rd. If you have specific procurement questions, this is Deborah Benson's contact information. She's not in the office today, but she will be back on Monday and will respond to any questions you submit to her directly. How are the proposals evaluated? So the New York team will evaluate each proposal submission according to these criteria. So 50% weight for details of the proposed project, 30% for demonstration of expected qualifications, relevant project examples and contract examples, your technical expertise and previous references and clients. And then 20% will be weighted for your budget detail and cost effectiveness. And so just to note, POs will be awarded to the contractor that best satisfies the overall requirements of the RFP, and then our Cornell and our Cornell University review and evaluation criteria. How many projects do we anticipate being able to support through this? So the number of projects will vary depending on the quality of the budget, the quality and the budget of the proposals we receive. So last year, we reviewed every proposal on a project by project basis and matched the best contractor for each project. And that's how it works. But I do, want to just clarify that, even if we do get submissions for each of the projects, we may not be able to move forward every project. And that is due to potential funding limitations, or maybe just not determining that the contractor is the best fit for that project. And you can review more detail about our candidate and award selection criteria. There's a link in the RFP to where it is in that request for expression of interest that went out to communities. So communities are aware of this too, that the process is all, kind of is dependent on multiple evaluation criteria and also the funding and contractor piece to this. Okay, so I know that was a lot of information. Are there questions that I can answer in the chat that have been answered? Okay.
Yeah, Sarah, do you want us to read them to you?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so the first question we got was about whether or not, funding for EPA had been terminated and how this would be funded. And I know Elizabeth answered in the chat that, we still have funding for this program. So if there's anything else you want to say about that, that was the first question.
Yeah, I mean, we have funding for this program as of right now, and we are proceeding as planned. So that is how we're functioning. So yes, we're advancing this program, and we're continuing our work as planned until something else changes. But yes, please do not I guess be cautious about the future. We're proceeding and we have the funding in hand to support this program.
Yep, great. Does each proposal require an individual cover letter?
Yes. Each submission is required to have all 6 of those sections that I went over.
Perfect. I think you already answered this, but just to clarify, yes, there will be a Connecticut similar webinar to this one once their RFP is released, right?
Yes, yeah. As I said, their RFPs will be released mid-May. And when that is done, we will share with you when the webinar will be held. But it'll, follow similar format, and we'll make sure all of you get that.
Perfect. Are we open to proposals that are a partnership between 2 contractor organizations?
Yes. Yes, we have supported projects in the first round that have 2 contractors involved, most in different aspects of the project. So yes, that's something we could allow.
Great. I also think you covered this, but maybe we could just clarify again, who or what entities are going to be reviewing these proposals?
So this team on the call, so me, Sarah Powell, who's the one speaking, Elizabeth Hornstein, and Ben Goldberg. We are the SRC team for New York. We will be reviewing the proposals, in addition to Cornell University.
Perfect. Okay, next question, clarifying, is the $600,000 that's being advertised the total amount available for all 13 projects?
Yes, that is the total. That is the total amount. As I said, that is why we're looking to fund kind of like that preliminary conceptual design or preliminary planning efforts that usually are on that lower end of the price range. And if you want to see the costs of the projects that we funded through the first round, you can look at that award slate and interactive map to see, what the costs were for those projects if they're similar to the ones this year.
Great. This may be a question for Debbie. I'm not sure. Are there MWBE goals for contractors?
Oh, right. I think this is a question for Debbie. I'm not 100% sure on the answer to that. So we'll collect that answer and share it with Debbie, and she will get back to all of you with an answer in that procure where bid tool on that question.
Great. Next one, do we need to adhere to the current, federal administration sort of quote unquote risk words within our proposals since this is federally funded?
I would advise that you do. We did go through each project description and try to ensure that we were adhering to executive orders and the language that might not trigger anything. So if you want to use those project descriptions as guidance, I would advise that. When this is all, federally funded, so your purchase order, all the language in there will need to be in alignment with executive orders too. So yes, I would say that would be smart.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, next question is project experience with higher education a requirement? They're looking in particular from some additional detail on this statement. Quote, the university will review all accepted proposals with particular emphasis on the supplier's record of performance and service in higher education. This may be one for Debbie as well, but
I think so too. Just to be safe, I'm gonna say we'll pass that one on to Debbie and she'll answer that.
okay, great. I think final question for now is, are bidders that are, proposing on this RFP or sending in bids precluded from submitting on subsequent project phases, if there were to be another round for design, permitting, construction administration, etc.?
No, I don't believe so. Oftentimes what happens is that, yeah, if you're a contractor that's kind of involved initially, you might be involved later on in the process. It's not, at least according to our process, you're not precluded. But I guess I would say just to maybe have a conversation with the awardee community if the project does advance about this specifically, so that you can maybe get an understanding of how you might be involved later on in the project. Because it's later stages of projects will likely go through that awardee's maybe specific procurement process. So our process is focused on this planning stage, and we're likely not going to be funding or supporting later stages of projects to like implementation.
Great. That's all the questions from the chat for now. I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to put in the chat or come off mute and ask. And I'll just say too, while folks are thinking, those of you who put your names in the chat that you need the RFP, we've got you noted down. So thank you.
Yes. Yes, we'll make sure you get that RFP. It probably won't be till Monday because Debbie is out of the office today, but we'll be sure to pass along the questions that we couldn't answer that are a little more procurement focused, and your contact information so that we can get you on the list and get the RFP to you. And then so you can access the Procureware bid tool to review the answers to some of these questions that we were unable to answer. Can we reach out to municipalities regarding proposed projects? I would advise against that. We do say that you should not be in communication with the community until the PO is established. Just to make sure that it's an equal playing field for everybody. So that's my answer on that. Any other questions? You can feel free to come off mute if you are have a question. Okay. Well, we'll stay on for a couple more minutes in case somebody, is in the middle of reviewing something and wants to ask a question. And we will certainly let you know when the Connecticut RFPs are out. You'll be hearing from us. We'll add all of your names to our distribution list and to get that information. And we'll send out the recording for this webinar after this as well, so you guys have that to reference. So thank you so much, everybody, for attending. We're really excited to move the second round of this program along and get some really great projects going again. So I really appreciate all of you being here, and yes, we're very happy to have all of you engaged. So I'll stay on for a little bit longer.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Sarah, I see a quick chat about, will this recording be available? I mean, a question, not a chat, on the portal. And I think the answer is that we can share it out via email with all of you after.
Yeah, I'll send it out via email. I'm not sure they have the capability to share webinar recordings through that portal, but you will get it over email. If you do not get it from us, somehow we miss you, just reach out to one of us and we'll be sure to pass it along. Okay, I see one more question in the chat about does the RFP include helping the communities pursue funding to support implementation? We do encourage the contractor to, if it's appropriate, to include information about next steps for the community in the RFP and also in the project scope. So that could include identifying actions and then the funding sources to pursue those actions. So that can be part of that for sure. We do have a grant writing assistance program, which is kind of a separate program to this planning support program. And that is focused on helping communities get grant funding for project implementation or planning. So I would say the better channel to help a community with accessing funding is through the grant writing assistance program. You can be the contractor for that community to help them apply to a grant, and we provide up to $9,950 for each project to help a community apply for a grant. So that is something as kind of a second phase maybe to this, but definitely including information about next steps and how to access funding is would be something appreciated and encouraged in each of these projects.